was on 12.
Yep.
I don't know anymore. Okay, so what if you'd either have jobs that players bits of story that they can play out, which was the original intent in the steampunk game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the mechanics are there, but it was supposed to be just like a little bit of flavor, like, oh, we're going off to do this thing.
Sure.
Alternatively, because if the 13 Spiders route is always there, you can always do an influence check at the 13 Spiders HQ to drop off raw pure.
Okay.
Then that means that job always exists. It's a default.
Okay.
What if we were able to come up with all of other kinds of jobs that involve the different skills or different things that players can do that involve the different skills? So instead of being guided by what job cards they can pick up, they just have specific things that they can do that will help earn them points over time.
I'm listening.
Okay.
It would be a lot fewer cards.
Yeah.
The game, which would reduce the weight and the cost.
Yes.
So,
Okay. Yeah.
but the mechanics stay exactly the same.
Okay.
Okay.
And if you remember when we were dealing with job cards, we were having a lot of trouble coming up with enough story things for them anyways.
Very much.
So I'm also thinking about that issue to kind of solve here. So
Okay.
we basically have drug running for 13 Spice, the raw pure to sell it.
Okay.
Okay. We have on the map, one of the locations could be some kind of refinery owned by a corporate. Maybe not the corporate faction, but just a corporate entity owns a refinery.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And say that they will also take raw pure, but their influence check is higher and you get more points.
Do you earn a mark? Do you earn a mark?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
If you start selling raw pure to somebody else, 13 Spiders are going
That's
to
what
hit
I'm
this.
saying.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So
Digging
then we
that.
have a corporate refinery that you could sell raw pure to, but you have to get a higher influence check.
Okay.
But you also get more points out of it because they will pay way better.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
13 Spiders pays very little, but they also threaten you with violence. So,
Right.
so they can get away with that. So then there's the refinery. The refinery on the map could also offer refined product that you can purchase with crypto to boost your skills to go and do more stuff. So you're not exchanging victory points or anything. It's just you're going there, you're getting your victory points, or you could go there even if you don't give them any pure. And and it's like a shop. You show up, and if you have the crypto, you can buy the potions, basically.
Okay.
Because Mario, you remember we talked about the possibility of like
Yep.
pure being different. Like there's different versions of refined pure that could have a skill attached to it.
Yeah.
So like orange pure gives you heightened combat ability. Yellow pure gives you heightened tech sense, and purple pure gives you really good mental awareness. Or maybe even darn near psychic ability. Who knows?
Right.
You're able to influence people easier. And so that's basically in D&D terms, that's the magic shop where you can go and you can buy the stuff, right? 13 Spiders is not a shop. You don't want to go there for any reason.
Right.
We could make a system where you could drop in there and pay them crypto to remove marks if you wanted to, instead of the risk of losing people over marks
That's a really good point. Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
We'll need to think about that some more.
Okay.
But the one that I'm not sure about is the combat skill. What can we have players do with the combat skill on a regular basis? It's always available to them to try and earn points with their combat skill that is not guided by a specific mission.
PvP?
Could be.
Right. How much complexity does that add, though?
David and I were already playing with a PvP system. We were already toying with the mechanics. Basically, you had to occupy the space of another ship, and then the way David describes it, it was like a contest.
Okay.
Right?
That was the initial plan.
Well, do you want to? You kind of came up with the steampunk version.
Oh.
If you want to recap it?
So yeah, it was a contest of strength, so to speak. It was captain versus captain, so that you didn't have to worry about getting the entire crew involved, and you put your skill of choice versus the other captain's skill of choice, and then rolled. And then I believe we said you could use one piece of equipment, which would boost your skill, and then you could also use any single boost cards, one-shot cards, and the payout was something we were still back and forth on. And so it was still kind of in the works, because some people always wanted a PvP system and other people were just like, PvP ruins the game. So it was white or black. There was no gray area.
Interesting.
So if you follow the pattern that we've been kind of setting up with the Cyberpunk version, if it was just the combat skill, no skill choice, just the combat skill, combat versus combat, The leader is the one in the contest, which in the steampunk version, it was a duel, and duels were illegal. So you would earn wanted tokens for dueling other people. And that was how we balanced people from like chasing weak players and keep them from just like hitting them over and over, was that they would get wanted tokens.
And then they
would get arrested if they pushed too hard.
Warped to the other side of the map and then couldn't continue to chase.
Right. So that means that when this PvP happens, 13 Spiders is upset about that, and they would give a mark to the person that is right, or starts the fight, maybe, because this is like their territory, and they're keeping the peace, you know, because they want to sell their drugs, and a whole bunch of fights breaking out is not good for business.
Right.
So you have this fight that happens. It's a combat skill versus combat skill. Good problem comes in with choice. Because David wants to fight me.
Right.
I don't want to fight. How do we resolve that I don't want to engage him?
That was one of the reasons. Yeah, because we had people that were literally just hunting down the weak and cutting them off and kind of ruining the fun that was being enjoyed overall as a table, because one guy wanted to bully everybody else. And so we made fights a mutual agreement, i.e. contest. And so if one person doesn't agree, then the other person doesn't get to have any fun. So
got it.
And in this line of things, I was originally thinking you were going with the PvP, almost like a piracy thing. But if the person doesn't agree, you can't really steal the pure that they're in their cargo.
Right.
So
no, this would be straight up just for victory points. Because it's like, if you can, the point of PvP would be to exert your physical strength over another player to slow them down, essentially. Maybe they're not stealing pure, win-cation with another player. You get into an altercation with me, you win, you take one of my victory points.
It would have to be pretty high stakes like that, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So it's a wager. Could you wager more than one?
Oh, God.
I mean, that could make things interesting. Like, if
wager up to 3 victory points between the two players. Discuss their way. There's a purse to be won.
So whoever wins takes that many victory points from the other person. The only problem with this is if I have like 1 victory point and you have 5.
Well, then you can only wager 1.
Then we have. Okay, so if I only have 1 victory point, you can't wager 3.
Nope.
1 is it. If I have 0 victory points, point in you coming after me at all.
Exactly, and nobody's going to agree to fight
any.
you.
That's a good point. So a weak player that has not gained any victory points left yet is not going to be chased down by somebody who has focused on combat,
right?
Because they have nothing to take.
Right.
Does it help to have it where it's a negative connotation, where if somebody has 5 victory points and did decide to go after somebody with 1, because of the discrepancy in there, they almost lose like reputation, or you see what I'm saying? Like, you could do it. Is there a reason to do that? And if they went through with it, they still lose like a prestige point for that.
Alternatively, it could be, so the winner gains a mark. So the loser doesn't gain a mark, but the loser loses VP.
Yeah, that does seem unfair to lose VP and gain a mark.
Right. So the loser loses VP, but gains no mark. The winner is the one that gains the mark. because 13 Spiders looks at them as the aggressor. That makes sense. Okay, story-wise. So if there's a large discrepancy in victory points on the victory track, if David is 5 or more spaces ahead of me, then if he wins, he takes 2 marks.
Oh shit!
Because it's 3 strikes, you're out.
Yeah.
So he would not. He would be able to come after me twice, but then he would get warped away by the 13 Spiders and get his ass handed to him. Like you really don't want to end up with too many marks. Like you want to manage that resource as much as possible. So somebody that really pushes the limit is going to pay the price.
I have a feeling that it's one of those rules that's going to get easily overlooked as far as like detriment of being so far ahead.
I mean, if it's on, so here's my thought as I got into this like idea of the static job of the game has a card, sits on the table, and somebody's like, hey, wait, how do I do the 13 Spiders thing again? And they pick up the 13 Spiders job card. Okay. And they can plainly see, you go here, you get this, you come back, you do this influence check, and you get this many points.
Right.
and then there's a PvP card, lists those things out. There's got to be a way to say, there's got to be a way to very easily look at who has how many victory points, and if a person is way ahead, then they're going to take more. Or maybe we simplify it to this: if you are the leading player, you're going to take 2 marks if you win in a PvP.
Oh, if you have the
most
in
victory,
the overall game,
yeah. If you have the most victory points, even after, like, if you have the most victory points, you're winning a PvP, you will take 2 marks. So that slows down the runaway leader, and it also helps with that discrepancy, because if David has 5 victory points and I have 1, we can only wager 1. If I win, now I have 2 and he has 4. Now we're much closer together on victory points, and there's no longer discrepancy. He wins.
It's 6-0.
Then he gets 6 and I have 0. Which is a wider gap. But if Mario, if you were in the game and you were sitting there at 4, David is now in the lead and he takes 2 anyway. But if Mario, if you were at like 8 or something and David was coming after me just for what he thought was easy points, then it's closing the gap between you guys and it is pushing me away. So there is a chance I would be in a much worse situation on you two guys being way ahead of me. But that is also, like, when it gets to that point where you guys have earned 5 and 8 points and I have 1, I'm a pretty bad player. And at that point, even if I only have 1 victory point, you would imagine that means that I've been going around collecting resources, which means I'm probably not the guy that you want to fight, because I'm going to have plenty of cards in my hand that you just don't want to mess with me. Because the thing I was thinking about was, in the original Steampunk game, before it became a deck builder, you would add up the skills on the crew that you have in front of you. In the new one, the problem that we came across with PvP, David's turn, he gets to play cards in front of him to come after me. The only card I have in front of me is the leader. So if we say only leaders and a piece of equipment, it's really easy for David to go, that leader doesn't have as much combat and he has no equipment, and I've got a piece of equipment, I can go win potentially. There's still a die roll, so there's still a chance that I would win and he lose, but it's in his favor. So to remove that favor of him knowing what's on the table is we have cards in hand from the deck builder. So David has cards in his hand, I have cards in my hand, even if it's not my turn. If I have other characters that have combat skill and David says, I'm PvPing with you, here's my combat, and I respond and I say, well, I'm going to add this and this and this, and just like in most dueling games, continue to play those cards until they either run out or they're done, right? And I've only got 1 victory point. I've probably got some badass cards from just running around picking up resources and spending money, and I'm probably going to lay down a whole bunch of combat, and then it wouldn't matter what I roll, and I still beat him anyway. And then I take his victory point, and now I've got 2. Your turn. Right. So it feels like it could balance itself out as long as we have ways of the defender to play cards to add to their combat skill. I just picked up this game, and hopefully the 3 of us can play it at some point, because I think a lot of the mechanics are very similar to what we're watching in the Cyberpunk game. I picked up the Game of Thrones playing card game by Fantasy Flight, based on the books, not the show. And I talked it over with David, the rule book, and it has kind of some similarities there with like how it deals with combat or political things, or like how you win in certain situations and stuff.
Very faction based.
Oh, wow.
And it is very faction based because of the houses. So this would be a really good game for us to play and get some ideas for that. I also picked up Legend of the Five Rings card game because they have some really interesting ways of dealing with resources in that game. So that one's really cool too. So what I'm saying is some of our meetings need to be us playing games.
It's research.
That's right.
Research. Well, I bought them for research. So
yeah,
I didn't buy them to add to the collection. I'm buying them for research. Okay.
No, that sounds
I'm going to
really
make
cool.
a quick note. If a player in the lead after altercation, they take 2 marks. Speaking of, that just made me think about the map and like, where you're sitting on the map and stuff. Because in the original Steampunk map, you remember there were civilized and hazardous locations, right? And now we just have city versus like wasteland.
Yeah, they were very interconnected.
But on the map, we had 3 different civilized areas, and that's where you got your job from.
Right.
A red job from a red location. Right. I think there's a discussion coming on how we deal with factions and locations. How do you guys feel about that?
Okay, sure.